Are Christians hypocrites? Well, absolutely they are. That's just an admission of truth because a lot of their beliefs are based around bald hypocrisy. And here comes a video where they try to justify it, or at the very least, make the religious audience feel better about their irrational acts. That ought to be fun, right? Today, we're going to do a Frank Turek video, some kind of stage presentation, I don't know, but his video description doesn't say where it might have been or any of the details, so I guess we'll have to guess. I guess it really doesn't matter though, because this is just Frank being Frank. He says he's going to respond to Christians are hypocrites, but I don't think he's going to do a good job. You'll have to tell me in the comments at the end what you think, though, because this is Frank Turek we're talking about, and let's be honest, Frank isn't that bright, is he?
In fact, what is the biggest objection you get if you're a Christian? What do people say about Christians in general?
I don't know, but I'm sure you're going to tell us, aren't you? This is another video that just kind of starts in the middle of a thought, and I really wish I knew why so many religious videos did that. It makes it hard to respond to these things in any kind of coherent fashion without going out and finding the original video, if one exists, and figuring out what the hell he's talking about. Not that I suspect it matters, so we'll just move on and see what he says next. I can tell you what I say about Christians in general, though. They're delusional. They're overly emotional, immature children who really just want to believe. Am I anywhere close? Let me know down in the comments what you think.
You're a hypocrite!
That wasn't what I would have said. I mean, it's true for a lot of Christians, granted, lots of other theists as well, but that's not how I look at Christianity, because Christianity doesn't care. They have never put their beliefs to the test in order to see if they stand up to any kind of rational, critical evaluation, because they don't care about any of that. So it's not exactly a surprise that so many of their views are ridiculously hypocritical, because they're not trying to get to any kind of demonstrable truth. They just want to feel good. They have nothing actually real to measure their beliefs against. And that's why it's all so dumb.
Now, when somebody calls you a hypocrite, you know what I think you ought to say? At least two things.
And we'll get to that in a second. If someone calls you a hypocrite, though, at least from my perspective, since that's really all I can offer, the first thing you ought to do is find out if they're right. If you're being a hypocrite, then you ought to stop being a hypocrite. Of course, Frank can't say that, or at least I don't think he will. And I guess we'll find out in a minute because, here he is and we have to listen to him. But Frank isn't interested in holding consistent, rational, well-evidenced beliefs at all. If you do that, then you're unlikely to be a hypocrite because reality is your yardstick by which all other things are measured. And no, religion isn't the only problem here. It's irrational thinking and wishes and dreams and blind faith, and even a lot of atheists have that problem because they stop caring about what is and they start worrying only about what feels good. And that's never going to get you to truth. So you really ought to knock that off.
Number one, you're right.
And I guess I was wrong. Maybe. Because I said check to see if they're right, and if so, change your behavior. Frank, I don't think, wants to change his behavior. He doesn't want to stop being a hypocrite. He just wants to embrace it because he'd rather be happy than rational, whereas I would rather be rational than happy. We'll have to see where he goes with this. I haven't seen any further than this yet, but I'll give him half credit for disproving my amazing powers of precognition. I wasn't completely wrong, but he still isn't being rational, is he?
So? What follows from that? I don't live up to my standards. Do you live up to yours?
Actually, yes, I do. That's why I have them. I don't break the law. I don't get arrested. I don't go to jail. I don't do things that I don't think I should be doing. I have murdered exactly as many people as I want to, which is 0. I have raped as many women as I want to, which is 0. I have stolen just as many cars as I want to, still 0. I am holding up my end of the bargain. How about you? But what Frank is doing here is pretending that his religious beliefs are true because that's what he wants to believe, because that's why he's here. It's a whole bunch of Christians in the audience who have paid him to hear his emotionally comforting presentation. They want to have their biases confirmed. That doesn't mean anything. I want actual truth, and the actual truth is I am doing nothing at all wrong. Most people aren't, and the people who are, we hold those people accountable to the laws that we have. The rules that I live my life by, I actually follow. Why can't Frank say the same thing?
You realize that nobody lives up to their standards.
I do. This is the lie they have to tell themselves, because if they don't, then there's no reason to show up for church on Sunday morning. If you don't need someone to forgive you for your sins, then who needs to drop money in the collection plate on the way out the door? This is why churches are set up the way they are. Christian church services, by and large, are designed specifically to maximize giving. The music, the order of things that are done, those plates come around when people are most primed to open their wallets. Tell me you didn't already know this. The entire concept of sin itself is just a way to extract the contents of your bank account. They have to make you feel bad about being you so that they can offer you a path to salvation, conveniently behind an extended hand for your cash. I don't need any third party to tell me I'm forgiven. If I wrong someone, then I do my best to make it right, and I seek forgiveness from the people that I've wronged. Fuck the church. They're just a bunch of con men only after your money.
Nobody is completely consistent all the time. We're all fallen.
That's your story. It's just bullshit. You have absolutely no evidence of any kind to back it up. This is another instance of me not caring about your stupid doctrines because you can't prove that any of it is true. It's an article of faith, and faith means precisely dick. Of course, if you have an audience full of gullible suckers who have signed up to be taken advantage of, then I guess someone like Frank just can't help himself. And you notice, thou shalt not take advantage of the rationally challenged isn't in the Bible anywhere, right? Because that's all religion is.
The second thing you can say, do you realize you've just given evidence for God?
Nope. Granted, he is expecting people to say yes to his first question, and I didn't. That's how the religious set up these gotchas. They expect everyone to agree with them, and when we don't, they've got no clue what the hell to say in response. If you ever watch a Ray Comfort video, and I don't recommend it, but if you ever do, where he pulls the "do you ever do anything wrong" crap, just say no. Name one thing that you think I've done wrong, that I agree with you is wrong. Go ahead. They just run. Lying? Well, I don't think all lying is wrong. Nobody does. We all tell these little white lies as social lubricant all the time. Big deal. That's not wrong. That's part of being a social species. Any of the big stuff that's actually against the law that can get you arrested and put in jail? Nope. I don't do any of that because I've never even seen the inside of a jail cell. So what is this shit that I'm supposed to be doing wrong? They can never come up with a one, can they?
Why? Why is hypocrisy wrong if there is no God?
I never said it was. In fact, Frank never said it was. Maybe he did before the video started, but not in the 45 seconds that we've watched so far. I don't think all lying is wrong, but I can still call you a liar if I catch you telling one. Wrong doesn't necessarily enter into it. And why would anything be wrong? Because society deems it wrong. That's the actual answer you're looking for, but it isn't an answer that Frank can acknowledge because he's there to steal from the intellectually broken. Let's not mince words here. Frank is a con man, pure and simple.
Why is anything wrong if there is no God? Nothing's wrong if there's no God.
Bullshit. Society determines what is wrong over the whole of the society. The people matter. Their opinions matter. Your imaginary friend doesn't. That's another way to get the religious heading for the hills. Tell them you don't care about their gods. They don't know what the hell to say to that. They'll just run back to their side and make something up because they've failed miserably, but they can't admit that because, of course not, they're out there to steal people's money. That's the real problem here. They have base assumptions they expect everyone to make, and when we don't, they just stand there dumbfounded because they don't know what else to say. But I have faith. Who cares? I don't. I think your faith is stupid. That'll shut them up real quick, won't it? Too bad it won't make them go away forever.
There's no standard beyond ourselves that we're obligated to obey. You can't say anything's right or wrong. It's just your opinion.
Yup. And when a whole bunch of people with the same opinion put that opinion into law, and the mechanisms of law enforcement in society come and scoop your ass up and take you to prison for violating those rules that have been codified into law, you absolutely can say that things are right or wrong. You don't want to go to prison, therefore you don't do that in society. You don't do the things that society has decided are wrong because you don't want to suffer the consequences. Frank doesn't speed because he doesn't want to get a ticket. He doesn't want his license taken away. He doesn't want to have his car confiscated. He doesn't want to have to pay the fines. That's why it's wrong, because society says so, and there are consequences for doing things outside the confines of society's permission. Tell me you don't already understand this, Frank. You can't possibly be that dumb.
So if you think there's something wrong with hypocrisy, you've just given evidence for God.
No, just for your own stupidity. This is another case of, God done it, just being slapped onto things for effect, when there's no evidence whatsoever that God exists in the first place or actually done anything. This is where people like Frank, since he's certainly not the only one who does it, go entirely wrong. Just because you really like the idea of your imaginary friend, that doesn't mean that your imaginary friend is real. And they just can't get that through their heads. Sad, isn't it?
A number of years ago, I had a couple of debates with Christopher Hitchens, who was a brilliant British atheist who sounded more brilliant than he was because he had a British accent.
No, he was a hell of a lot smarter than you are. Now, I love Hitchens. He's been gone for a very long time now, but he didn't call out Frank on his bullshit the way that I would have. I'm sorry, but the British are often far too polite for their own good. Fuck your God, and fuck you too, Frank. I've seen those debates, and if I had been there, if I had been up on that stage, they wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes. Prove your God is real. If you can't, we're done and you've lost. That's the only thing that actually matters. Your claims and your evidence for those claims. Where are they? They don't have any. Okay, debate over. Screw off.
You can see these debates on our YouTube channel, and he went on and on about how much evil religious people have done, to which I said to him, you know, you're right, Christopher, we have done a lot of evil, but you're proving our worldview.
He did absolutely nothing of the sort. Frank is just assuming that because he really likes a God, that therefore means that that God has to be real, right? But that's not how that works. Evil is not defined by your imaginary friend. It just isn't. You're an idiot, Frank. Evil is defined by humans, and what Hitchens was talking about, and it's been a long time since I've seen those debates, granted, but from what I remember, Hitchens wasn't talking about your God, but about how humans define evil for our own purposes. Christians are just assholes in that context, at least a certain percentage of them are. Frank is just trying to spin it so it sounds better to his religious audience, so he makes more money. Because Frank is a fucking moron.
We admit we've done evil. That's why we need a Savior. And I don't live up to the pure words of Christ either. I'm a hypocrite.
That slip tells you a lot, doesn't it? Frank is downright evil. He's out there lying for the Lord for a buck night after night after night. I'd say that's evil, wouldn't you? That's why the religious don't really want to talk to us, and why I think we need to stop playing nice with the stupid people on stage. Just call a spade a spade. Don't let their unjustified claims and empty beliefs become part of the conversation. They simply do not belong. The time to even consider any gods is when there has been sufficient evidence presented to conclude that they are actually real, and not 1 second before. Stop playing these bullshit games. Enough is enough.
And when people say I can't go to church because there's too many hypocrites down there, I always say, come on down, pal, we got room for one more.
I'm not staying away because you're all hypocrites. I'm doing it because what you're preaching is complete and utter bullshit. That's the part they don't want to admit. It's all bullshit, presented without any kind of evidence, pandering to the emotions of people who clearly aren't that bright and certainly aren't rational because they don't care about any of it. Not one bit. I have no more interest in going to your church than I do going to an indoctrination camp because that's all you're doing. You're spewing bullshit for a buck. Anyone who's impressed by that has some serious problems upstairs. I know I am not remotely impressed, and if you are, then you've just lost any and all of my respect.
The church is a hospital for sinners. It's not a country club for saints.
No, it's a place for delusional people who can't cope with reality. You don't even know where you are because you don't really care. That's the real problem that we see with the religious. They haven't got the slightest clue what's going on, and they couldn't care less. This is exactly why I reject the whole from a Christian perspective nonsense. I don't care what position you start with. I care what you can evidentially defend. You can't do a damn thing, which is why they play make-believe and pretend that their perspective or worldview or whatever matters. It doesn't. That's why they're so ludicrously incestuous. They have to keep it all in the family because otherwise they get laughed at, as they should.
In fact, when people say, there's a couple of saints right here. When people say I can't go to church because there's too many hypocrites down there, they would be like saying I can't go to the gym because there's too many out-of-shape people down there.
And that might have sounded good in Frank's head, but in reality, the reason there are out-of-shape people at the gym is because they're trying to get better. They are trying to lose weight. They are trying to tone their bodies. The religious, they aren't trying to get better. In fact, they're doing exactly the opposite. They're trying to reinforce the things that make them dumb to begin with. That's not something to be proud of, is it? If he wanted an actual better analogy, then he would say, well, if you go to the all-you-can-eat buffet, there's overweight people. Yeah, because those are the people who are like the religious. It's not the ones at the gym, it's the ones who are trying to stay fat.
It's one of the reasons you're going to the gym. It's one of the reasons you're coming to church.
Absolutely not. They're going to the gym to lose the stuff that's making them unhealthy. People go to church to retain the things that are making them unhealthy. Now, if you wanted to do this properly, which of course we know Frank doesn't care about, he would say, well, what about all the religious people going to college? But that's not what's happening, is it? Granted, Frank wouldn't see it that way, but screw Frank. He's a con man. If you are trying to improve yourself, don't go to a church. You go to a school. There, you're trying to lose your ignorance, whereas in a church, you're trying to revel in it. And that's not a good thing.
Now, as Gia said during the worship, a lot of times people have trouble imagining a heavenly father because their earthly father was a hypocrite. Earthly father's been a jerk. I get it. We're all fallen. None of us are perfect. But I want to ask you a question. If you've had somebody in your life who claims to be a Christian, and that has turned you off because of what they did or how they conducted themselves, here's the question.
And here's the answer before you even get going. No. Nobody turned me off being a Christian. No person has that power. This is a point that I've made before, but I think it bears repeating. If you're a Christian or any other religion, let's be fair, and you stop believing because of what any human being did, then you were never a Christian or whatever it was to begin with. You didn't actually believe in the God. You were just there to meet people. It was a social encounter. If you actually believed in the God, then it doesn't matter what the people might do, no matter how reprehensible what they do is. The people don't actually matter. Your relationship, your demonstrable relationship with your imaginary friend does. Yes, it's terrible if the priest does something bad to you, but that priest is going to get theirs in the end according to your beliefs, so you don't really care. Well, I was sad, so I'm going to give up my spot in heaven and willingly go to hell. Yeah, that's stupid. So if you actually believe, don't do that. It just makes you look like an even bigger idiot than you already are. If you're going to leave your religion, do it for rational reasons. Do it because there's no reason to believe any of this crap to begin with. That's why you should leave, but not because somebody made me sad.
When somebody plays Beethoven poorly, who do you blame?
Obviously, the person with no talent. I don't know that I'd really blame them because I don't really care. If you want to play Beethoven badly, go right ahead. Have fun. What do I care? It's none of my business. It doesn't bother me one bit. Now, if I paid to see you in concert and you started playing chopsticks, I'd go and demand my money back, but that's not really blaming anybody. There's an unwritten contract that I should be entertained, and if I wasn't, completely through the failure of the artist, they don't deserve my money in compensation for their time and efforts. I'd never go to see that artist in concert ever again, and I probably wouldn't be alone. I'm not sure what this has to do with anything, though, because I kind of agree with Frank, and yes, I did throw up in my mouth a little bit just saying that.
Who do you blame? You don't blame Beethoven. When somebody plays Jesus poorly, who do you blame? You don't blame Jesus.
I already said that. Granted, there's no good reason to think Jesus was real in the first place. This is like saying you go to a Harry Potter stage show and the lead actor is really, really, really bad. Well, you don't blame Harry Potter, do you? Of course not, since Harry Potter isn't real. You blame the people responsible for the actual failure, which might be the director and the actors, and, you get the picture. This shouldn't be a surprising position at all. I wouldn't blame Jesus because I have no reason to believe in Jesus at all. And the same goes for Allah, same goes for Krishna, anything like that. Imaginary beings aren't worthy of blame. And even if you did, who cares? Because what are they going to do about it? They're not real. What do you think you're going to get out of it by blaming imaginary crap? It's just kind of silly.
Look, just because I'm not true and beautiful doesn't mean Jesus isn't true and beautiful. Just because your dad wasn't true and beautiful doesn't mean Jesus isn't true and beautiful.
And we come right back to back up your claims. Granted, I know that's not what Frank is here to do. I acknowledge that, but it's still a valid point. The religious apologists get up on stage and make all kinds of empty claims designed to appeal to the believers in the audience, whether those claims are defensible or true or anything like that, because they don't care. The audience is there to get their biases confirmed, and they couldn't care less if any of it is true. And I think that is ridiculously sad, don't you? They are paying to get lied to. What the hell is wrong with these people?
Newsflash, Christianity is not Christians, Christianity is Jesus. Keep your eyes on Jesus.
Christianity is delusion, pure and simple, and that goes for all religions too. There's a lot of delusional people in the audience who couldn't care less if what they believe is true. They've just got Frank to whip up the crowd and say a bunch of emotionally comforting crap that doesn't actually mean anything in reality. It just makes them all feel good. Why? Because these people aren't that bright. They aren't concerned with the truth. They just really want to believe. It's Frank's job to get up there and make excuses for the nagging questions that some believers might have, to tell them to stop thinking about it because fifis, and that's just stupid, isn't it? I think we already know that though, right? So anyway, what did you think? Let me know that down in the comments. This is just another case of Frank making excuses for Christianity, and that's nothing at all to be proud of, and he's doing nothing at all to justify any of it because he just doesn't care, any more than his audience does. They get confirmation of all their silly stories, he gets a pocket full of cash, and we get another video to laugh at because that's all it's worth. Frank isn't all that smart. Cagey, sure, conniving, absolutely, but not smart. Certainly not rational. I'm still looking for any apologist who is rational. I just don't think they actually exist.